right, everyone, welcome to the first episode of Founder Sunday School. If your religion is exit, then I, as an investor, are praying for them. I'm here to help make sure that you can put your best foot forward. And what better way to put a better foot forward in front of investors, your recruits, anyone out there talking about your startup than elevator pitches? Let's start with why elevator pitches. So I'm sure everyone knows about the origin story of elevator pitches at this point, but nowadays, succinctly, it's how you describe what you're doing, what you're working on, from when it's some form of an idea to a legacy company. It's being able to distill what you do and trying to get someone excited about what you're working on. Really the point of an elevator pitch is not to close a deal. It's not to, lock someone into doing something, right? It's really to just get your best foot forward and get yourself in the door. And so the goal is really to be able to form a genuine connection, right? Whether you're talking to an investor and you're seeking an investment, you're meeting a potential customer and you're talking about sales, or you're meeting with someone who you think is really sharp, you want them to join your company. Recruiting starts with a really great, concise elevator pitch. And again, the goal is not to close anything with an elevator pitch. It's to spark a conversation. It's to get someone thinking. If the result of your elevator pitch is that they close off and they say, sounds interesting, and moves on, you failed, right? You want them to have an opening, be able to ask questions, be able to say, oh my God, I had an experience in some particular area that's related to what you're working on. I totally get it, right? Those moments are really, the goal of a really strong elevator pitch. And so really taking us back to high school English language, we're really talking about at the basics, at the core, appeals to ethos, pathos, and logos. And what are these things? I'm sure, some of you know, some of you don't. Ethos is an appeal to authority, right? So a person who's presenting and providing an appeal to authority, their own authority, really speaks about their professional and educational experiences, any certifications that they may have, any work experience, so on and so forth. It's really, bearing out your resume and saying that because of it, because of your CV, you're the right person to be talking about this. You know what you're doing. An appeal to logic, I think that's pretty straightforward, right? It's common sense. It's all data. It's evidence driven. It's really trying to get someone, who is as knowledgeable in the area as you are. They're on the same page because they believe the same things that you do, right? And an appeal to pathos, this comes straight from the heart, right? Where ethos might be a badge that you might wear, and something that you might have earned, and logos comes straight from the brain. Pathos is an appeal to someone's heart, right? And as we look, right, in ideal ratio here, you kind of notice that an appeal to the heart is what is most important. And really, in my experience and seeing a lot of pitches, those are the things that come the most resonant, right? We really look at, things that people can connect to, things that regardless, they don't have to think too hard, right? They don't have to, listen to you talk about yourself for too long. Those are some of the drawbacks around ethos and logos. They're still important, and that's why they still have a percentage fraction in there, right? But as you can see, right, it's more important to speak, to connect with someone on a human level, right? In a lot of different startups in general, right? The appeal to ethos, unless you're working on some form of deep tech, there's some form of major blocker that requires your standing as an authoritative figure. It's really not a part of the equation. And for logic, logic only goes so far, right? That people can hear that it makes sense, know that it makes sense, and knows that they should be doing something, or something's the right way, but really people don't act on it. We've seen it time and time again. Not going to get didactic about it, right? But if the world ran 100% logically, I think that a lot more things would get done, right? But really, a lot of the world is built off of emotion. I think everyone intuitively understands that. And so, really, I would really like to focus on when you're constructing an elevator pitch to really determine how do you want the other side to feel, right? And some really great example of strong resonant emotions, right? When you're making those appeal to pathos, is anger, panic, greed, right? These are some really strong emotions, and they really fit with some of the different type of styles of pitches that are out there. I've come across a lot of pitches. I've given a lot of pitches. These are just some examples of some of the go-to ones that I might be doing. Negative 1-to-1, a fear of God pitch, some form of traction overload. They are meant to evoke a particular emotion. And so really, if you want to distill it down and kind of talk through some of these examples, right? What is a negative 1-to-1 pitch? It's really talking about, hey, they've been screwing us for years. We can do better. It's so inefficient. This really sucks. We can make it so much better, right? And so you really see a lot of those types of pitches in fintech and crypto. You talk about it in the terrible healthcare system, pharmaceuticals, and in government and defense, right? The wasteful government spending, all of the irregularities that go on at the government level, right? And all of the stuff that's needed to assist in defense and so on. These are really strong resonant pitches that can really appeal to the emotion, especially within healthcare, fintech, government. These all elicit really strong emotions from people, right? And in this case, a lot of it is often anger, right? Anger at the healthcare system, costs too much, the fintech system, where, hey, these big greedy banks, right? They're screwing us on interest rates. They're screwing us on high loan, interest rates, all those types of things, right? And, you can really construct a really strong pitch that draws upon a emotion of anger. Fear of God, when we're talking about trying to incite some form of panic, right? Climate change absolutely has that down, right? The earth is essentially going to blow up if, all the climate change folks, are talking at you about a lot of these different types of things, right? It's certainly important. It brings that sense of panic. Hey, we got to do something. It's been drilled into our heads. But, the pitch works. And that's why it's such on the zeitgeist of a lot of people. It's important work that a lot of climate tech companies are doing. And, it's an effective pitch, right? Healthcare and pharma, when you're talking about diseases, cancer, all of these types of things, you can strike panic in people, right? We were very much grappling with a underdeveloped healthcare system. Even though we're one of the most advanced societies in the world, our healthcare system couldn't hold against, the first and frankly, to some extent, mild pandemic, right? If it was much worse, some sort of catastrophic pandemic, we wouldn't be able to survive, right? And that's some form of really strong fear of God pitch, right? Generating the urgency around something that's, a critical need within our society. Cybersecurity, right? And this is the last example. Your computers are going to get hacked. You're going to lose everything. Really effective about generating panic and really, generating urgency. And that's kind of the end result of a fear of God pitch. And lastly, traction overload. This is just, hey, we're doing gangbusters. We're doing amazing. Hey, check us out. We're awesome, right? And, these really fit into different types of business models that I think, as long as you attach yourself to a great metric, you can really gather someone's attention, right, and really spark conversation. When you're an enterprise SaaS company and you pull out that, hey, we've got 1 million ARR, that perks ears, that sparks conversation. People are interested, right? This is a really strong appeal to a little bit more ethos, a little bit more logos, right? A little bit more credibility when you've created a lot of revenue. If you've got a lot of monthly active users and you're growing that month over month, and if you have a really great CAC LTV ratio within your ecom brand, right, gets people excited, gets people's attention, right, and fits in more with some of that personal greed, opportunity hunting personalities out there. You can attract a lot of those people. And so to recap, right, so an elevator pitch, You're getting your foot in the door. You want to spark back and forth conversation. And 9 times out of 10, there shouldn't be an expectation that a deal goes on, right? That like, hey, you're going out on a first date, or you literally just met someone for the first time. You can't ask someone to marry you, right? It just does not work. And, I can say probably 100% of the time, it probably won't work in those particular circumstances. In elevator pitch, it's rare, if ever, that someone is like, yes, here, check, great, right? Or that, someone is willing to sign a contract just based off of that. They want a little bit more soul searching, but, hey, guess what? You've sparked a conversation, you've got your foot in the door, and you're moving on, and you're starting, whether a sales cycle, an investment process, or, an employee is interested, checks out your website, and eventually applies to be hired. So really just wanted to talk about, my formula. And look, this is a pretty standard formula, but, I've made my little easy tweaks to it, right? But, we talk about a one-liner. This is kind of something that you would say, and then you probably get around 3 to 4 lines when you're working on an email. And so, for a certain customer base, let's try to tighten it up, get a really strong ideal customer, right? Specific person at specific type of company. Your company provides X solution to solve Y problem, right? Which gives a particular value proposition to your customer. I just want to remind you that value proposition is the value that a customer gets out of, their transaction with you, irrespective of what your product or solution is, right? So I don't care what your solution is. I don't care, it's a black box for all I care. I don't need to know what it is. I just need to know what the value, you're providing for those people, right? And so that's in the value proposition portion at the end of the elevator pitch for your solution. Filter out as many buzzwords as possible, get it clean, get it distinct, add in a little bit of what your business model, right, is as it pertains to your solution, right? You're an enterprise SaaS company, you're a consumer application with a subscription model, right? You're an e-commerce brand with a subscription. The more things that you can pull out the adjectives and add more of the meaty business terms, the better. And when you're talking about the problem, hopefully you've done your customer interviews, you've done your customer discovery, and it really should be, when you're talking about the problem, it should be as if, someone, your target customer is right there and they just said it, right? You're not putting any words into their mouth. It's just straight from them. And so for the 4-liner, this is kind of following a little bit of the Simon Sinek why, how, what, right? But I think that if you just expand upon the above one-liner, right? Why is your company doing what it's doing? What's the special sauce that allows for you to execute on your company's individual why? And then literally, what is your company providing to people? And then some form of appeal to, ethos is good at the end. Hey, I have 10 years of experience in yada yada industry, which, puts me head and shoulders above others, who might be addressing this problem, right? It's all about, being able to succinctly, provide a answer to these things. Shouldn't be long, shouldn't be fragments either, but, it should be quick, it should be punchy, and it should get to the point. And so how do you evaluate your elevator pitch, right? So you've created maybe your one-liner, your four-liner for your email, right? Let's recap again. Does it elicit the emotion you wish out of your listener? Did you leave an opening for questions or follow-ups, right? Hopefully your elevator pitch doesn't answer everything, right? When you're pulling out the adjectives, you're pulling out the words, right? Leave a little bit of mystery, a little bit of mystique, maybe sometimes you're like, you might want to try to expose a particular question, right? Like, hey, I built this, hardware tool that enables, people to do X, and maybe you don't explain enough so that an automatic response is, oh, really? How does your hardware, thing work, right? You want to leave a little bit of an opening to allow for people to ask questions and provide follow-up. When you're doing your elevator pitch, right, it's always great to practice and rehearse your elevator pitch, but you really want to ask yourself, like, does it sound natural? Does it sound off the cuff? If you were talking to, your family member, would they say, like, okay, you're in work mode right now, right? Like, no one wants to talk to someone who's in work mode, even if they know that you're in work mode, right? It just lowers their guard if you're just talking to someone as a normal human being, right? And given that, it's just you, it's your personality, yourself, you're remaining in yourself, you can expect to consistently be able to give that pitch over and over and over again. You won't forget stuff because it's just coming from you, right? It's not something that's super rehearsed. If you forget a line, you don't want to freeze like deer in headlights, right? And that's a big problem with rehearsed pitches, right? Someone cuts in, interrupts, something happens, you lose your place, and you're like, you restart over again, and you sound like a robot. You sound like someone who's way too polished, and someone who's, a snake oil salesman, frankly, in a lot of cases, when, it just sounds a little bit too polished. And like I also mentioned way at the start, right, there's different audiences for your elevator pitch. Could be an investor, could be a customer, could be a potential employee. And so how easy is it for you to modify your elevator pitch depending on who your listener is, right? Because your investor might be a customer, your customer might be an investor, and who knows, a potential employee that you target might not turn out to be an employee, but they might want to invest in your company. So I think that there's a lot of different pieces that go into an elevator pitch, as long as, it really is genuinely yourself, what emotion that you want to elicit from people, and that what the outcome of what you want it to be, right? What type of questions they're going to follow up with, and where, the conversation will organically go. Hopefully this presentation has helped armed you with a good amount of information to go out and execute on an amazing elevator pitch. Thank you for joining me for a Founder Sunday School. Follow me on Twitter at IfGeorgeCan. Check out the events tab on the r/startups Discord server for future events. We'll be doing a lot more of these Founder Sunday Schools. And if you're watching from YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, all that usual good stuff. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you.